Welcome to The Power of Tax Defense Attorneys, Tax Corner with Juda Gabaie.
Welcome to Clearing the Tax Fog, the best strategies for handling large liabilities and unfiled returns with Juda Gabaie. I'm your host, Abigail Vaca, and I'm joined by Juda Gabaie, expert tax attorney of Gabaie and Associates, LLC. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Juda, can you explain how individuals or businesses end up with large tax liabilities and the common factors that lead to these situations?
We have plenty of clients that individuals and businesses, they may have not filed 1 or 2 year and it snowballs and it then turns into 5, 6 years, sometimes even a decade. They get notices from the IRS and they just ignore it. And then at that point, the IRS or the state is coming after them, levying them, garnishing their accounts, leaning their accounts. At that point, the IRS has taken their money and they want to try to get this resolved because they've been unfiled for so many years. Or you could have a taxpayer where they filed all their tax returns, but they're unable to pay the liability every year. For example, you want to file your tax return this year and you're filing it, but there's a liability that's due. And the liability, you paid in full, but then you're not able to pay next year's liability because right now you got to make an estimated tax payment. And if you're not able to make the estimated tax payment, then that could just snowball from one quarter to another quarter. And before you know it, it's a large liability that you're unable to pay.
So for someone who has filed tax returns for multiple years, what are the risks they face in terms of penalties, interest, or any sort of legal action?
Yes. So failure to file is actually a criminal element. Failure to file, we always advise our clients to file the tax return, even if they have a liability that is due. When you fail to file a tax return, you have failure to file, then you also have failure to pay. So that's why if you could file the return, so at least you don't have the failure to file penalty. You'll still have the failure to pay penalty. And, that would definitely, increase and rack up over time, but at least you file the return. At that point, we'll advise our clients to try to be current with their taxes. And on the back taxes, we'll attempt to get them into a resolution with the IRS.
How does the IRS or state typically approach individuals or businesses with significant unpaid taxes or unfiled returns? What should they expect in terms of enforcement?
When a taxpayer is unfiled, the IRS and the state will send notices to file the tax return. If the taxpayer fails to file the returns, the IRS and the state will file estimate returns on their behalf. Estimate returns are usually way more than what the taxpayer would actually owe had they filed the return on their own. The government will create these estimates in order to take enforcement actions such as liens, levies, garnishments to collect on that tax liability. Our advice generally, in cases like this, is that we would like to do the research, pull all the information. If the IRS or the state did file estimates, we want to fix up those estimates. And the way we fix up those estimates, we tell the state and the feds, hey, those returns that you did are incorrect. Here's the real return. It's called an audit reconsideration. Reconsider the audit that you did. Because when you fail to file a return, they file these estimates, these substitute for return. And we'll come back and tell the government, these returns are incorrect. Let's reconsider it. These are the actual returns.
So what are the first steps someone should take if they realize they have unfiled tax returns or large tax liabilities hanging over them?
One of the first steps they should take is to be current. They should consult with a tax specialist, a tax attorney, that will pull their transcripts to see if all the liabilities are actually accurate. At that point, if the liabilities are accurate, they're correct liabilities, then the tax attorney or the tax specialist will make a determination whether, based on their financial, what sort of resolution would be the best option for them. At that point, once that's determined, then they will file for either an offer and compromise settlement, a payment plan, or a hardship status. There are options out there.
So it's possible for people with large tax liabilities to negotiate a resolution with the IRS or state tax authorities.
100%. There is a resolution for anyone with large tax liabilities. The question is going to be which resolution they would qualify for. We have had clients of ours that have owed hundreds, if not millions of dollars, and we were able to get them both in a settlement, in a payment plan, in a hardship status. I know, one client of ours that recently owed over, I think it was like $800,000, and we were able to settle with the government for about $25,000. So there are options out there. There are partial pay installment agreement where they can't afford a settlement, but we'll tell the government, they can only afford a few $100s a month. The government, if they have no choice, will accept that few $100s a month, and you could be in that partial pay and run out the statute of limitation on that. So there are definitely options out there.
Right. And you kind of touched on this, but how do you help clients who have both unfiled returns and large tax liabilities? Can the two issues be handled together, or do they have to be handled separately?
Yes, both issues will have to be handled together. You're unable to get into a resolution until those unfiled returns are addressed. You have to be in compliance. And the way that works is that when you retain a tax attorney, they will research your case. At that point, there are balances that are due for some older years, and then there's returns that have not been filed. They will get a hold on those balances from collection. They'll ask to get a hold on that while the returns are prepared and filed, so you can be brought back into compliance. Once that is done and you are in compliance, all your returns are filed. At that point, you can discuss a resolution to address all your tax liability, including the back taxes that you had previously. So all of that could be lumped into one resolution, and that resolution could either be a settlement, payment plan, or a hardship status.
Great. And what role does a tax attorney play in helping someone with unfiled returns and large liabilities avoid more serious consequences like audits or wage garnishments? And I would love an example or two if you have one.
What a tax attorney can do is, in terms of large liabilities, or if you're concerned about audits, what we'll do is we'll prepare a return that accurately reflects that unfiled return that you have, right? Depending on what income you had, we can try to pull the income from the wage and income transcripts. We can pull that information from your bank statements to prepare that return. Generally, when you don't file a tax return, the IRS will file estimate returns on your behalf. That gets done by an auditor sometimes, or either by a paper audit. They'll file those estimates, and we'll fix up those estimates. Or if there's an auditor assigned to the case where the taxpayer hasn't filed a return and the auditor is trying to determine what the income is for those years, we can definitely help with those audits to paint a great picture to the government and say, this is the taxpayer's income for those years, these are their expenses. If you haven't filed any of these returns and the IRS files estimates, now we got to get these fixed up. For example, I'll give you a client of mine. He hasn't filed in over a decade. The IRS filed estimates returns. He owed in excess of $800,000. These are all estimate returns that were not filed by the taxpayer since 2012. 10 years of not filing a tax return. And the IRS went ahead, and the state, they filed estimate returns. A revenue officer was assigned to the case to try to collect on this debt. We asked the revenue officer to give us a hold on the case for about 30 days while we went and researched the case. We researched the case. We told the taxpayer we're going to need to file tax returns to fix up all those audits. When we put all these tax returns together, we came to the IRS with a compelling reason and say, look, all these estimates that you did are wrong. Look at our correct assessment of the taxpayer. We ask that you put the taxpayer on hold. Don't take any enforcement action until we get this resolved. When the taxpayer came to us, they were already levying and garnishing. They liquidated their retirement account. They were thinking of referring the case to the DOJ for prosecution and to extend the statute of limitation on the civil side. We asked the revenue officer to get a hold on the account while we go ahead and get a lot of these returns fixed up. At the end of the day, once we fixed up all those returns, when all those returns got processed, the taxpayer got refunds and got all the money that was levied against them back, because a lot of those were estimates. So that $800,000, if I remember correctly, actually, we wiped that out, and the taxpayer got anywhere, I think if I remember, it was about $50,000 to $60,000. The taxpayer, this was a recent case, got that money, those refunds back, because they actually had some W-2 with withholding on it And they had some self-employment, but those were offset by their expenses, and the government agreed with our position, and the taxpayer actually got a refund, and now they're in compliance, and they're filing the tax return timely and paying all their liability on time too now. So there are resolutions. Definitely a tax professional should take a look at it to determine what's the resolution, what's the best course of action to take to getting a case resolved.
What a story. Thank you for sharing that. Is there anything else you'd like listeners to know before we wrap up today?
If you're in a tax controversy issue, if you have a tax problem, such as unfiled returns, tax liability, an audit, a revenue officer, a payroll tax issue, we are here to help. This is all our office does. Our firm literally specializes in this area. We have an in-house accountant, we have an in-house bookkeeper that will help to get clients into compliance, and so we can get them into some resolution that they would qualify for. So if you ever have any sort of tax issues or anything like that, we're more than happy to take a look at it and see what we can help you with.
Great. Thank you so much, Juda. It was a pleasure speaking with you today.
Likewise, thank you.
Thanks for listening to Clearing the Tax Fog, the best strategies for handling large liabilities and unfiled returns. To connect with Juda, visit reliabletaxattorney.com. And don't forget to leave us a comment, like, subscribe, and review wherever you listen to the podcast. We love hearing from you.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.